International Media TV. Television that listens to you.
Hi, I'm Johnnie Burrell. Welcome to the program.
My grandmother's grandfather was born a slave. He died a state senator. He co-founded Virginia State University. My grandfather's great-grandfather was born a slave, purchased himself and his family out of freedom, started a bank, co-signed the Virginia Constitution, and was in the first class of blacks in the House of Delegates of Virginia. Those brothers did whatever they had to do to advance their community. We have to get back to that. There's too many of us who stay trapped in the nonprofit sector, who are only willing to try one thing, and the opportunity to try something else was, I just couldn't pass up Belva. So yes, I do live in Oakland 10 days out of the month, and I live in DC the other 20.
Well, tell us though, enrich us all, telling us what is the magic of a person who says I'm a community organizer? How do you get there?
The moment you know you're an organizer is when your brain has changed. Organizers, by habit, you're trained to always think from the goal backwards, right? To always have a goal and to know how to get to it. And there's a moment that happens when you just start seeing the world backwards. Right? So somebody says something that they want to do, and you already have the 15 steps starting from the goal backwards that you have to. What people understand now, sort of in there, is that this is a moment when we need organizers. Because the battles at this moment, I keep pointing to the president, the California NAACP is in the audience because she gets this, and this is how we ultimately became dear friends, is the battles of this moment are at the state level across this country. That is where the battle line is. Please don't train children who want to change the world to be lawyers, unless you're training them to be prosecutors. And Felton Henderson, if you ever have him, or Kamala Harris can explain why. But the bottom line is we do need lawyers who will have real power in our justice system, and it is prosecutors who have that now. But if you have a young person who really wants to change the world quickly and in big ways, train them to be an organizer and get them to believe in the power of states. Because that is where the right wing has dug in. We have a habit on the left of winning the wars and losing the peace. We won the Civil War. We let the country turn to Jim Crow. We won the Civil Rights Movement. We have now been subjected to a solid 50 years of increased power of states' rights and the weakening of the federal government. And Obama's in there, and all of us have had to just really smell the stench of where Washington is right now. Right? The Congress, yeah. You know, the last Congress, the do-nothing Congress that we all grew up studying in civics, they were called the do-nothing Congress where they passed less than 1,000 laws, 900 and change laws. The last Congress passed 220. 10% of those 220, in other words, they did less than a quarter of the do-nothing Congress, about a quarter. 10% of those 220 laws were for commemorative coins. What was happening in the states? They were shredding up voting rights. We were winning marriage equality coast to coast last year. Maine, Minnesota, Washington State, Maryland. We were winning battles to abolish the death penalty while other people were, shredding environmental protections. It is a violent seesaw in the states. But here's the beauty of it, and this is why organizers are so important. In our country, there are only two types of temporal power at the end of the day. We are in a democracy, and we are in the wealthiest democracy that's ever existed. There is organized money, and there is organized people. And at this moment, it is still true, because we haven't become explicitly an oligarchy yet, that organized people hold the trump card. But we have to be organized. Organized people can win every day, and certainly twice on Sunday, which is why they're trying to get rid of Sunday voting in so many states. But we have to be organized. See, if rights are restored to people when they return from prison, we still fundamentally treat, and if something is a right, well, we make it universal. In America, we still treat voting like a privilege. We do not register you automatically. I mean, think about it. If the draft board can find you wherever you go, your voter registration form can find you wherever you go. And yes, we restore to you, your right to liberty, your right to work, all these other rights, your First Amendment rights when you come out of prison. But we don't give you back your right to vote in many places. Why does the NAACP have a grudge about this? Because it is the last pillar of Jim Crow era voter suppression that we still tolerate. The Senator Glass I was talking about, that senator who helped usher in Jim Crow in Virginia, when advocating for what is still Virginia's lifetime ban on convicted felons from ever voting again. And I've seen women who are active in the junior league talk about how humiliated they are because they made a mistake when they were young and they were convicted of maybe of a drug felony. And now they've gone on and they own businesses and they're pillars in the community, and somebody comes and says, Jill's running for office. Would you sign the petition? I can't sign the petition. Just please sign the petition. Do you not like Jill? No, I'm a felon. And having to out themselves again and again. Senator Glass said, because of this plan, talking about that, the Negro will be eliminated as a factor in our state's politics within 5 years. Because they had taken crimes associated with poverty and upped them to felonies as a way to control black men who were poor in the South. And now they were seeking to use that to kind of leapfrog into voter suppression and pushing black electeds like my grandmother's grandfather out of office.
So what drove you to the East Coast for school?
Girls. There were 2 black girls in my high school. I dated both of them. And I walked down 125th Street when I was 18 years old or 17 years old, and I don't want to come back. So that was a big part of it. Anybody who tells you, especially any young man who tells you why he did something when he was 17 that doesn't involve, isn't telling you the whole truth. I remember, Belva, I once interviewed a man who is a leader in the men's pro-feminist movement. My father is, or was in the 70s before they kind of upgraded their name, but he started admitting that men can be feminists too. And I said to him, I said, look, man, you're at Yale in 1970, and you could join the anti-war movement. You could join SDS. You could join, there are all sorts of stuff. You could be the Black Panthers. You could be whatever. Black Panther, White Auxiliary. I mean, you could do anything you want to do, man. Why'd you join the pro-feminist movement? And he gave me all these crazy answers. And I just kept asking the same question. A good journalist, you ask the same question, you get the real answer. Could you not? He said, brother, I just figured out women say yes to men who say no. I was 18 years old. So, his wife is a feminist historian. She has sworn me to never say his name when I tell that story. But the other part of it, I think there were honestly 2 other things going on with me. One was I was ambitious, and the Ivy League meant something. The other thing was that my father had been disowned. His family played a role in the founding of Harvard College.
Thank you so much for coming to the Bay Area. Being in technology and innovation, my question has to be about catalyzing capital. I work day in and day out with social innovators and entrepreneurs from within our community. Trying to get them capital, whether it be for a nonprofit or for a social venture, is really hard. And it's even double hard for those of us who are trying to catalyze black capital. So what are some of the things that you recommend, what's the leadership on being able to catalyze capital, both philanthropic and venture?
One is always to remember the basics, right? Like, your grandmother may have told you something along the lines of, you gotta be twice as good to get half as much.
Yes.
That hasn't changed, right? The other is to be really clear about the nature of business, and especially, venture capital business, which is, don't bring us any small ideas, right? Really, when you talk to folks, when I talk to, for instance, a black entrepreneur who's gone through Y Combinator, I said, what did you get out of this? That they were relentless in pushing me to think to scale, right? If you look at what made the NAACP great in the first half, say, of the 20th century, it was our leaders kept thinking, just going after the biggest thing they could go after. And that's great leadership of any color, and it's true in our community. The next is to, with that said, there should be no shame to your game, right? If you know that you're twice as good and you're thinking to scale, then you don't take no for an answer. If somebody you need to meet with. I remember meeting Robert Johnson, not the blues man, but the founder of Ebony and Jet.